Welcome to our 5 on 5. Pleased to welcome back Dwight Holton. He's the Executive Director with Lines for Life in Portland. Good to see you, sir.
So good to be here, Craig.
Yeah, good to have you. So in case people aren't familiar, Lines for Life in Portland, what are you guys doing there?
So Lines for Life is a nonprofit dedicated to preventing substance abuse and suicide. So we answer crisis lines, we do work in schools and in the community around prevention, and we do advocacy and policy work around both suicide and substance abuse prevention.
Okay, and it started as a military organization or one for veterans, and it's clearly expanded. How have you guys done that?
Our work with veterans is incredibly important to us. We work with the National Veterans Crisis Line, answering crisis calls from veterans all over the country who are calling in a really rough place. That's been a part of our work. As you mentioned, we've expanded dramatically in the last couple of years. Geez, 5-6 years ago, we were talking to probably 35, 45,000 people a year on our crisis lines. Last year, it was 135.
Wow.
And our youth line in particular, we have a teen-to-teen crisis line that mostly talks to folks in Oregon, but really it's all over the nation as well. That's gone from connecting with 1,300 teens a year to connecting with, last year, over 20,000 contacts.
Wow.
So we've got a bunch of great work going on, working to prevent substance abuse and suicide.
Mm-hmm. And you're also involved with the In This Together campaign, which originated right here in this building. Why are you personally involved? Why is Lines for Life involved in this?
Well, the In This Together initiative that KOBI has launched is remarkably important because it puts partner leaders from a community together around a table to solve a real crisis. You know, we are looking at a real challenge around mental health and around suicide, not just in the Rogue Valley, but all over the Oregon and all over the United States. And at the end of the day, what this comes down to, the most important thing we can do is break down that wall of stigma so that when people are feeling helpless or having a really hard day, they reach out for help. You know, if you break your arm, you call 911 or you go to the emergency room. You don't get embarrassed, you're not embarrassed to reach out for help because there's no stigma around that. We've got to get to the same place on mental health. So if you're having a rough day, you can get help, and you can, whether it's through mental health services or a crisis line or calling a friend, asking for help is okay. That's what you need to do.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. We're going to hear with Dwight Holton, the Executive Director with Lines for Life. You and I were talking about it during the break. You're the former U.S. Attorney for Oregon. You work in Portland. You live in Portland and have familiarity all across the state. What does it say to you about the In This Together campaign and what you've seen in the Rogue Valley in particular?
Oh, so I've always enjoyed working in the Rogue Valley. I did a lot of it when I was U.S. Attorney, precisely because this is a community that gets together to figure out what they can do to meet their challenges. So whether it was initiatives like the Southern Oregon Meth Project that KOBI hosted years ago, or In This Together, you look around the room and what you've got is healthcare and law enforcement and addiction treatment folks and nonprofits and everybody you can think of working together to figure out how you tackle a tough challenge. It's really special, and I think that's something I've always enjoyed about the Rogue Valley is that willingness to come together and make stuff happen.
Can you tell our viewers about Breaking the Silence? What is that and how did it get started?
Breaking the Silence is an initiative that was also born right in this very studio. It's an effort to help reporters and news organizations do a better job of reporting on suicide. It used to be that we really only talked about suicide on the news and in the newspaper when we had a celebrity death, Robin Williams or Kate Spade or Anthony Bourdain. There are remarkable stories of hope and healing to tell around suicide prevention. You know, for every person who dies by suicide, there are 280 folks who think about it seriously and don't. Those are comeback kid stories. Those are the kind of stories we ought to be telling so that we convey the message of hope to people who are struggling. KOBI and Lines for Life together really launched and built this initiative called Breaking the Silence to equip newsrooms to do that job right.
Yeah, and it is a difficult thing for news organizations to talk about because of contagion. Can you break that down in case viewers don't know what that is quite simply?
So 2 really interesting data points. One, we know that if news organizations report about suicide in a way that's sensationalistic, that isolates like one factor and says, oh, it was because of this, a couple of things like that, that it can create a risk of contagion, what some folks might think of as copycats. But the other data point, and the one that's really exciting, is that we also know that if news organizations report on suicide in a responsible way, in a way that connects people to resources, in a way that talks about the hope, for example, the folks who've lived through this and gone forward to have wonderful lives, that we can actually reduce suicide in a community. And that's why journalists from all over Oregon have come together to do this Breaking the Silence initiative. We're looking to take it national, born right here in the studio.
Yeah, that's incredible. And what, just in case people are watching and they themselves are struggling or they have a loved one, what do you recommend they do just to make sure they're aware of resources?
So you should always feel comfortable to reach out. Lines for Life is a part of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Network. You can find us at 1-800-273-TALK. And any time of day, we are always there with thoughtful, compassionate folks ready to help you find a way forward for yourself or help you with a friend or loved one.
Good to see you again. Thanks
Great to
very
see you,
much.
Craig.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.